I was going to take a hiatus, a respite, because I've got this show coming up on August 12th, and I'm just going deep into the subconscious to try to figure out, well, what is this show going to be about? This show, Emil, Amok, lost NPR host. So I said, I'm going to curtail these live shows that I do, because these live shows are just exercise, right? They're it's like me going to the gym and doing stomach crunches. You want to see those live, and then you can see the replay, after. But we got so many things going on that are worth talking about. Like, do you realize it hasn't been 24 hours and Donald Trump has pled guilty a second time? Because not only did he have to plead guilty the first time to the third indictment on Thursday, but he had to plead not guilty, not plead guilty, plead not guilty. He had to plead not guilty to the new charges, or the superseding charges that came out of the indictment in the Mar-a-Lago case last week. So he had to plead not guilty. He didn't have to be there in person. Apparently, it was just a document thing, lawyers, but it was not guilty. So for the first time in history, you had a former president pleading not guilty twice in 24 hours. That is historical. And so I thought we should bring up my dear friend, the Professor Emeritus, College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies, San Francisco State University, Daniel Phil Gonzalez, and he'll be up to talk about the big picture of the third indictment, and just the specter of having this criminality, this alleged criminality, hanging over the United States political system. I mean, this is a big deal, right? And this is the wrong time to get complacent. I mean, you really have to look at it and say, I was getting bored with Trump. I was thinking he was going to get out of the way. It's getting interesting now. This is when it gets interesting. And I keep going to that clip, on January 6th, where Trump says, you got to fight like hell or you're not going to have a country. You got to pay it. So I just, change it. I take that phrase and I come at it from a different perspective, and I say, you got to fight like hell against this or you're not going to have a country, because that's what's at stake. What's at stake are our voting rights. What's at stake is the very nature of how democracy works, the peaceful transition of power. And, there are two courts going on simultaneously. I mean, there's the legal court, right? That's where you got the three indictments, a possible fourth coming. That's all the law, right? That's legal stuff. And Donald Trump has very, very little space to argue. But then there's the court of public opinion. And the court of public opinion, it's a free-for-all. And that's the only court that Donald Trump knows. So he wants to go out there and talk all about his stuff. Of course, he can lie. He won't perjure himself. He's not under oath. But that's the court he wants to play in. And we have to be careful. We have to be careful to understand, that's his court. That's a court that has no bearing on democracy and law. In fact, that's the court of the First Amendment. And you can play that game, but then you got to come back to the court of law and say just how much he's damaged our democracy. I mean, it'll come out in trial, and then a jury will have to decide, but that's the one that counts. And so we'll get into that with Daniel Phil Gonzalez, Professor Daniel Phil. But before we do, I want to mention that show I'm doing. I think next week I'll take some time off and work more on the show, because I've done Emil Amok as part of my Amok monologues for the past 5 years or so. But you got to remember, 3 of those years were the pandemic years, and I didn't do any performances. I went to New York and did the Frigid Fringe in February and March of this year, and I got some nice reviews, nice audiences, and I thought, well, I'll come and do the show in San Francisco when the San Francisco Fringe opens up. And I got in, and it opens up August 10th, and my show is on August 12th, the 17th, and the 19th. And I want to personally invite you all to go. And if you're having a hard time with the ticket prices, look, these aren't Taylor Swift ticket prices. They're Taylor Street ticket prices, which are infinitely more affordable. But if you're having a hard time, you can email me at amok.com. And, I want you to be there. It's my story so far, because you can tell I'm such a young man. But, all these Amok monologues are about my life in life and me dealing with that. And I'm kind of in not a strange place in America, politically, certainly. But I also am in a strange place where I'm older, but feeling young, and dealing with a society that sees me as older. And of course, being Filipino plays a part in it. So it's an interesting, I think, an interesting show about race and America and the media and growing up in San Francisco. And, and then, of course, I have the gong. I don't play it. I realize I do not want to denigrate the gongsters out. I mean, there are professional gongsters, although, gong playing is a calling, and I'm called every now and then. But I know my gong playing is not. So it's sort of like a gong karaoke. I respect the gong. You just need to know that. So Emil Amok, Lost NPR host. I talk about my time at NPR. I talk about my time growing up in San Francisco, of course. I talk about my time at Harvard, and I talk about affirmative action, which is probably a new twist if you've seen parts of the show before, because a lot's happened since then, right? I mean, the Harvard case went on. Some Asians sued Harvard. They won in the Supreme Court. Affirmative action is dead. Race can't be used. I talk about that. And then I talk about how I deal with all of this in the past and how I've come out a better man. Of course. Well, you don't know that, though. I mean, it's treacherous. Emil Amok, Lost NPR host, found in San Francisco and other stories a true crime tale. If you're into true crime, like Carlos Bulason said, it's a crime to be Filipino in America. That's how it's a true crime tale. Filipino-American story. So check it out. Written and performed by me, Emil Amok. I say Guillermo, don't say Guillermo. Guillermo, that's how they say it. Presented as part of the 2023 San Francisco Fringe Festival. 277 Taylor Street. You can get your tickets there, or go to amok.com and click on the link and get the Eventbrite link to buy your tickets. Come see me live. I was talking to a friend of mine who I hadn't seen in 50 years. And this is the 50th year that a group of us, American students, went to France. And I was talking to another friend of mine who was on that trip. He said, we ought to get together, all the people who were part of that group. And so we started finding them because we didn't keep close touch. You talk to someone you haven't talked to in 50 years, and it's like, well, how the hell you been the last 50 years? Where do you begin? But we met as 17-year-olds in France, and so she and her family might be there at the show. And so Emil Amok, lost NPR host, you say, Emil, so you've done this show the last, well, you can go to some of the previous shows, and I read from some of my reviews, not to be too obnoxious, but the Manhattan Digest says, exposes America's ugly colonization of the Philippines, along with other comical and often profound observations. Must see for anyone who cares about human rights and social justice, says the Manhattan Digest. I'd see that show. The Orlando Weekly says, stand-up, monologue, rant. Enjoy trying to keep pace with Guillermo's brilliant mind. I'm not related to that person. Poignant, funny, the Orlando Weekly said it when I performed the Amok monologues in Orlando, the Fringe Festival there. So now it's at the San Francisco Fringe Festival, 277 Taylor Street. Saturday, August 12th at 7 p.m. That should be a good show. That's opening night for me. Thursday, August 17th at 8:30 p.m. Yeah, must see Thursday. And Saturday, August 19th, 1 p.m. For those of you who like to go to San Francisco during the daylight, get your tickets. Go to amok.com. Get the link to get you to Eventbrite, Eventbrite. What can I say? I hope to see you there. It's the reason why I'm going to take all next week to work on just so the show's ready for you. And I heard that we're going to do the show one more time in New York City. One more time. In addition to the Ishmael Reed play that I'm doing off Broadway in New York, starting on August 24th. So that's how my summer's working out. All right, so that's it. Welcome to Emil Amok's Takeout, my takes on all things considerable. We're talking, of course, about the big news story, and that's Donald Trump pleading not guilty. The Times was kind of interesting. On Monday, well, let's go to yesterday. You know, there's that picture of Trump in the umbrella, the red tie. The guy in the background with the bald head and the sunglasses was not body man Walt Nauta. Nauta did not have glasses, but Nauta did hand Trump the umbrella. And there's Trump walking with his umbrella on the front page of the Times. I like the headline was somewhat, you know, it's not partisan. At Capitol's foot, a reminder that the Capitol does have appendages that are historic and saw a lot on January 6th. A not guilty plea is issued by Trump. The charges notably absent in the case, so they write about all the things that aren't mentioned. Strategy of slowing conspiracy trial, another subhead. So, you know, when you read these news stories, it's always like the first two graphs. So on the front page of the Times, there was something noticeably absent when the special counsel Jack Smith unsealed an indictment this week, charging former President Donald J. Trump with multiple conspiracies to overturn the 2020 election. Any count that directly accused Mr. Trump of being responsible for the violence his supporters committed at the Capitol on January 6, 2022. Think about that. The indictment asserted that as violence erupted that day, Mr. Trump exploited the disruption, using it to further his goal of stopping the certification of his loss in the election. But it stopped short of charging him with actually encouraging or inciting the mob that stormed the building, chasing lawmakers from their duties. Now, this is interesting because I think it was done purposely to take away that First Amendment defense that Trump keeps talking about the last couple of days. His lawyers keep talking about. Anyway, uh, we're going to talk to Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez in just a second. I do want to mention the other headline on Wednesday when Trump was charged, and this is the reminder of why this is such an important case. Trump charged with destabilizing lies in 3 conspiracies to overturn his defeat. Filing claims 6 co-conspirators. Ex-president now faces 2 federal indictments, and the third is the state charge in New York. And then also top of the fold of the Times, case centers on fundamentals of U.S. democracy. So let's bring up Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez. Dan, welcome to the program. College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University, Asian American Studies. You're a follower of.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me
Yeah,
once
of
again.
course, of course. We know you're a regular Friday fixture, except when we decide not to do a show. But so tell
Yeah.
me, what's your reaction? I mean, the Times said, it's no mistake. When I remember the first note that you sent me about this, you said that it was a masterful job on the prosecutor's part of putting together this third indictment, and I guess a lot of it is because of what the special prosecutor Jack Smith left off. Like, there's nothing about inciting a riot or inciting violence. Well, how do
Mhm.
you see that?
No, I think it's really important. It was masterful in my opinion because it avoided as much as possible legal technical language. It was written in such a manner that people of basic educational background
Like
can
me.
can make sense of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
It's a
And
narrative.
so
It's a narrative.
the
Yeah.
narrative flows, the factual narrative flows very well.
Mhm.
And the counts as they are described minimize once again the use of legal technical language, which
Yeah.
is really important. It's obviously that this was written with the general public in mind,
Mhm.
and that's what I thought was most masterful. Now,
So.
on the exclusion of any violence, right, connection to violence,
Mhm.
uh, I I think I understand why he would avoid that,
Mhm.
and it's probably because the nexus, right, the factual connection is tenuous enough, even though it can be made. I mean, there's no question that you could make a factual connection. It's tenuous enough
Mhm.
that it might afford uh, uh, a uh, a strong defense. You know, it might afford a stronger defense, and so you don't want to give them that advantage by making it one of the charges. Okay, they're going to have a very difficult time dealing with this stuff and trying to find ways to delay it.
Mhm.
And you can already see what they're trying to do. They immediately said, intimated, right, that it's terrible to have this held in Washington D.C., which is, one of the worst places to hold one of these trials, and they're already they're having idiots on the side, like Lindsey Graham saying. We I don't know if I trust the jury system anymore.
Yeah.
It's terrible to hold the thing here. Yeah, McCarthy is saying this judge is absolutely biased against Trump.
Yeah.
That's all in addition to what's his name from Florida, the senator from Florida, said a while back. The jury system is a joke.
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
so
see, these are Republicans trying to find a way to attack an indictment that is really written so well they can't clash with the facts, because the facts are, here are some Republicans, the inner circle of Trump, that told him he lost, and then he did the opposite of that and knowingly did something else to try to overturn the election by going to other Republicans who were misleading him into thinking that he could, come up with a new slate of electors, an alternate slate of electors in various states, and try to overturn the election that way. And so they're all Republicans, and they're all his inner Republicans, and so there's very little that everything that the Republicans say now, or that Trump says now, uh, just avoids any clash with the actual details of the indictment and talks about all these other things outside.
And he's been criticizing the judge openly,
Oh yeah.
directly, and he's so a couple of things that I really need to restate, and I've said that before
Mhm.
on your show, and that is the Republicans keep saying Jack Smith, right, is
Mhm.
indicting him. Jack Smith is the guy that's doing this. Jack Smith is a Democratic biased guy, right, and all the rest of that. A year ago, when we started talking about the possibility of federal charges against Trump, I stated it's grand juries. It's regular American people that constitute the juries, right? And
Mhm.
it's the juries that decide. It is those jurors, and they have to do it unanimously if they're going to say we think it's our feeling, our notion, our conclusion that an indictment is valid, would be valid,
Right.
and
That a
we should
crime
go
was committed.
forward.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah,
That's
and
it.
you're right. You're right. I think people have personified the grand jury as Jack Smith when the grand jury is the public. It's
That's
the
right.
it's it's members of the public who met. They were presented evidence by the special prosecutor, and they voted on whether a crime was committed. And the standard is not as high as beyond a reasonable doubt. They just have to say that they have reason to believe that a crime was committed.
In the New York case of defamation, which is coming around again, right? A second defamation suit because the man can't keep his mouth shut.
Right.
Uh, Jurors came forward and said, some of the one in particular that I can recall said, I voted for Trump twice.
Yeah.
But our job is to set our perspective aside, right? Set
Mhm.
our own political politics, personal rather politics aside, and then go ahead and make the judgment based on the facts and the application of the law. And I had no choice. The facts were plain, the
Yeah.
application of the law was clear, and so we felt he was liable.
Right.
Simple
Well,
as that.
so this whole thing really, and this explains why the Trump lawyers are doing what they're doing. It's because,
You're really looking quite
w-
stupid right now,
well,
frankly.
there is the court of law, and there are these facts that are put out in the indictment, and then there, like I said, are all these. That's the court of law, but then in the court of public opinion, you could do anything else, and I think they are hell bent on discussing the case there, and they think if they win there, that that goes to their purpose of trying to win an election with Republicans who still are very beholden to Donald Trump. I mean,
And that's not going to change either.
the new polls that have come out. I mean, there was one new one. There was the New York Times Marist poll that everyone cited, that came out earlier in the week, which showed him trouncing everybody, like 40 points in front of DeSantis. But the one that I think that came out, like it was released today by Reuters, they asked, would you vote for Trump in 2024 if he is convicted of a felony? And 38% or 35% said yes. And this was a poll among Republicans, August 2nd through 3rd. There's a 6.4 plus or minus margin of error. But that's pretty high. If 35% say yes, Republicans say 20% say they're not sure. So that's like 55 said yes, not sure they would vote for Trump in 2024 if he's convicted of a felony. And then here's the other one. Would you vote for Trump in 2024 if he's serving time in prison? And yes, 28%. Not sure, 20%. And this is like August, like I said, August 2nd and 3rd, 6.4% plus or minus. This is a Reuters Ipsos poll. And it just says that, man, the Republicans aren't quitting him, or there's a sizable number of Republicans not quitting him. And, a sizable number of those Republicans are Asian American.
Oh yeah.
So what do you think? Now, I wrote about this in one of my columns. I said, just using something that the CNN commentator Van Jones said. He said that Trump is the white OJ.
I heard that.
Yeah, he said.
I didn't see him say it outright, but yeah, I heard that he had said that.
Yeah, he said white OJ because no matter what, I mean, he said the black community knew that OJ Simpson wasn't a saint, but they knew that they disliked the LAPD more, so they backed OJ, and I don't know. And then yesterday George Conway on CNN mentioned, yeah, Trump is like OJ, but not like the murder, in the murder case, but in the case that actually put him away, that where it was because he allegedly, or he stole sports memorabilia.
Sure.
That he says was his, but it wasn't, and then that's what he served the time.
He got a B&E. He got breaking and entering. He got theft. He got, I think, even an assault. So yeah, that's what put him away. Yeah.
So he served time, and then now he's living in Florida. I guess he's a neighbor of Trump. But I'm just saying, is he the white OJ? What do you think, Dan?
Well, I was thinking, yeah. But I was thinking entirely in a different direction, in that he's the white OJ in the sense that, the OJ Simpson trial was telecast live.
Oh
right?
Yeah.
And so the Trump is not being treated like any ordinary person because these are major crimes, and even though the charges against OJ were murder, right?
Yeah.
The reality is that this crime, whether or not he's not found guilty yet, but the allegations against him are so damning in terms of their effect overall on not only the political situation, but also the perception of the general public of the justice system, right? And the perception of the United States on a global level. Okay.
Right. Yeah, not just the people here, the citizens who are, they're suspicious now of our system, of voting and everything. But now, how about the people in third world countries, people abroad who look to the United States as a model?
Yeah.
And
now we're looking just like a third world country, I mean, all of the things, right? What was his statement? The shithole countries, right?
Yeah, right. Well, how about immediately after the indictment was unsealed, or after, when the indictment was unsealed, the other day, he said this is just like the Nazi Germany and dictators and third world countries. This is a statement from that was released by Trump, and it made me think of the Philippines.
Sure,
it made me think like, it's kind of weird because for so long the Philippines tried to emulate the United States, and now we're in a situation where the United States is emulating the Philippines.
Yeah.
I mean, I have never.
You had to know we were in trouble when Reagan won, right? Because there were, Yeah. Why was he popular? And part of it because he was a B movie actor,
Yeah.
right? And then afterwards he had a long term TV show, right? And
Death
and
Valley Days. Are you talking about Death Valley Days or
and yeah, that's right. Borax. Remember
Borax? Yeah.
Borax? So anyway, so he was a well known figure, even though he was a well known figure in a relatively minor sense. But that was enough, right? With his capacity to be able to communicate well on screen, made him a star politically.
Yeah.
So he was very strong. He got a second term, and in the second term, there's an old song, "The lights are on, but no one's home."
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He was clearly not as sharp as he had been in the first term, and then all these rumors started coming out, including some that came from White House staff
Yeah.
that I thought were quite credible.
Well, it's odd that now that we've got the McConnell freeze, you're frozen.
Yeah,
You're
oh
not on
yeah,
Zoom. You're frozen, and then
that
you
was so sad. I
yeah,
mean, that was
and,
really sad.
and then you have the Feinstein thing the other day during a vote. Like I defended Feinstein, and I'm against the ageism, but when you start to show publicly symptoms that show that you can't do your job, then that's where I pull back a little bit and say, okay, uh, I didn't want to gang up on these.
Well, as a side issue though, why then is when it's so obvious hasn't she just decided to retire and step down?
I think
And
it's
and
just
the answer is a California issue,
because what? Because
because Newsom would appoint a
oh,
black
shoot,
woman,
he'd appoint Barbara Lee.
Barbara Lee.
Yeah,
Yes,
and Feinstein wants Adam Schiff.
Schumer. She wants.
Schiff,
No, I'm sorry, Schiff.
Adam Schiff. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Schumer's a New Yorker.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's like it's politics, right? And Newsom's her. I don't want to. I don't want to say Newsom's her boy, but Newsom has been in that Democratic, uh, the funnel of Democratic politicians from San Francisco. Newsom was next man up, and
Yep.
then he got kind of got elbowed out by Kamala Harris, who was Attorney General or San Francisco DA, and then she became Attorney General. But they were rivals from long ago, and now maybe this is his way to try to come back up because he's definitely his own. I mean, he's talking about debating DeSantis and raising money. So
Yeah, that's still on, isn't it? They already picked a date, so
yeah, I think that's actually a good thing because politics is one of those things where the reason why Trump is so strong, I think, is because the Democrats aren't aren't as strong as they could be, and
they're
because
not as aggressive as they could be.
yeah, but Biden's done some great things, in terms of the economy, but boy, there's a misogynistic, racist streak that's anti-Harris,
That's right.
and so she's not helping the ticket, and so if the Democrats want to take advantage of Trump being so weak right now, I mean, he's weak in a general, but he's very strong amongst the Republicans. But they feel confident that they can beat him in a general, but maybe not. Not if some Democrats feel like, oh man,
Well,
we're
there's
just,
also the third party thing, you know.
yeah. I don't think the third party thing is well. It could be. Who knows? But I think that what's real is there is Biden fatigue, and no one's getting real excited about Biden. So it's actually good for Gavin Newsom to say, "Hey, I might as well explore my potential being because this could be his time."
Is it Biden fatigue, or is it simply that the right wing and moderate criticisms of him,
Mhm,
even when he was, especially because he's connected with Obama,
mhm.
right? Is it that lasting negative push against Obama and Biden, right, is just part of the continuity of the culture, the political culture in American society. I don't know if it's fatigue, but
I think. Well, I think they don't like the fact that Biden is older,
sure. But
and
they
they
also
don't.
perceive him as weaker, and not just because of his age.
Well,
They just don't see him as being as aggressive.
I
Uh,
don't know. He's had such a long career
yeah,
that if you remember him when he was senator in the Judiciary Committee, that's a different Biden, right? But some people remember that, and that's a
well,
while.
he was, definitely. Yeah, you're talking about his support of the a couple of crime acts,
Yeah.
federal, you
Well,
know.
that and also, during the Anita Hill hearing, he, but the politics were so different back then, 40 years ago, right? Or 30, 40 years ago. People were more collegial. Um, and I think one of the good things about Trump is he's really, you can tell the difference now between Republicans and Democrats, especially with Trump as the leader. The Republicans are the ones who like indicted candidates, and the Democrat, because there used to be, you could usually say, hey, Republicans and Democrats, Tweedledee, Tweedledum, right?
Yeah, on a lot of
On a lot of
issues,
things.
yeah,
But
and
now
and
you
then
say,
just in their general behavior, right?
yeah, but now it's not even the old style of, oh, they're conservatives and they're liberal. I mean, they're conservatives and they break the law and they lie and that's what Trump is. That's how he's dragging down the Republic. It's sad almost,
Yeah,
because
I refuse to continue to call them conservatives, okay, because
well,
they're not.
they're
They're
conservative compared to the Democrats, but there are some times when they're far closer in their capitalist views about how to protect how to protect corporations rather than consumers. Although Democrats
Yeah, they,
a
they
little
had been
better.
a large portion of the Republican voting electorate, right, was leaning further and further right and less conservative in the traditional sense
Mm,
uh, ever since I would say Reagan.
yeah,
Um, and but people look at Reagan as a saint. I mean, if
yeah,
they
but
could
right,
get him, if they could talk the Pope into it and a couple of cardinals,
you know,
they run
it,
him for sainthood.
in some ways, it's so old fashioned now to even raise Ronald Reagan up as a Republican because clearly it's Trump. It's Trump's party, and he's Republican. He's the Republican standard bearer, and you got people like Kevin McCarthy talking out both sides of his mouth, you know, condemning uh, Trump on January 7th, and then just today, praising him, saying, "Hey, a man has a free speech right." So
It only took him. It didn't it take him less than 2 weeks after he condemned him on January 6th
yeah,
on the floor of Congress, and I think it took him less than 2 weeks, and then there was a picture of him kissing up,
yeah. Well,
down in Mar-a-Lago.
yeah, Kevin McCarthy is so craven. I mean, he's off for himself, and
Yeah, sure.
it's
Well, I
it's
don't know. He thinks. Well, yeah, you're right that he's out for himself, but I think he thinks he is the competent leader of the Republican Party, and I bet you he thinks that in a post-Trump era he would
oh
be a survivor that
he
could,
right. He
that
emerges
that's
as
right,
the Republican leader because, hey, look, when the Republicans were falling apart, I was keeping things
that's right,
together. You
that's right,
needed someone competent like me, Kevin McCarthy, to
that's
keep
right.
things together. And I was lying,
Uh,
talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I was keeping things together so the Republicans had a pathway back to normalcy. I doubt it. I don't know. He might. I mean,
there was there were he makes Daryl Issa look good, you know.
or he makes Lindsey Graham is just as bad then,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Now there
They,
were two guys that I didn't like at all in the pre-Trump era, and that was Issa and Nunez.
Yeah, ISO
And
is
then
bad.
and then McCarthy came out, and I said, "Oh my God, what's wrong with Southern California, man? There's some toxic waste in the water, dude. You
Hey,
know?
what's his name? He's from Bakersfield.
Yeah,
Not. I guess that's Southern California. Is that
hell yeah, it is.
Bakersfield? It's kind
Where
of
do
the
you think the
valley.
South starts,
It's
man?
the valley. It's
You
the.
think that's central? Yeah, it's central in a
It's more
north south
central.
sense.
It's more
In a
central.
north south sense, it's central. But
Southern California really begins once you're over the grapevine.
oh, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, because once you're in the valley, in Bakersfield, and they're in the valley because the air is so bad. The air is the worst in the valley.
Yeah,
So anyway, all right. Look, let's get back to the indictment
the
because
indictment itself. What do you
because
think about the fourth count? I was
I
going to ask you about that.
I
The
think 241 is the thing that binds the indictment, or the thing that should encourage everyone to pay attention to this because it goes right to our fundamental rights
That's
to
right.
vote. I in my column on the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog, I talk about my dad who was a colonized Filipino when he came here, couldn't vote, and I wasn't sure exactly the circumstances under which he became a citizen because he didn't become a citizen until like maybe after the war, before the war. I just know that when he became a citizen, that was his opportunity. Like he didn't come to America to like start a business or, he was a cook. He didn't come here to go to school. He came here to be an American, and that meant you got to be able to vote. And you're not able to vote if you're not a citizen. So as soon as he became a citizen, there it was. He was an American, and
Well,
man,
there was a movement. There was a movement. See, the only people who could easily get their citizenship were veterans.
yeah.
Okay,
And I
and
know that
because they were specifically offered that,
yeah.
right? So Filipinos who were in the U.S. Armed Forces, right,
Mhm.
were offered that. And now there was a movement, however, that started before the war and continued after the war for immigrant Filipinos to be able to naturalize. And so that's why I think your father made that choice later after the war, because that was made available to them after 1946.
Yeah, it had to be after that because yeah, I can't because he wasn't eligible for the war for the
Yeah, he
military.
wasn't a veteran. Yeah,
Yeah. And so, but like I said, as soon as it did open up, that was that was the opportunity. He came here to
right.
be a
If
part of
we
a democracy
if we
and to
assume
vote.
that he applied as soon as he could,
Mhm.
and we assume that his 5 years, right, for naturalization began in 47 or so, 47, 48,
Yeah.
then it would make sense that he would take the oath for citizenship in 52, 53, like that. So if you can find that and establish that when he was actually taken, when he took the oath, that would explain it.
Yeah. Well, I just know that I wasn't born till later, and certainly his rights didn't open up until he became a citizen.
Right.
But it was still kind of limited if you weren't part of the military.
Sure.
So, because no GI Bill, we were always renters, didn't own a car, that kind of thing.
That's right.
And so it was, but the voting part, that was worth its weight in gold, right?
Sure.
And he always let me know the importance of voting, the importance of.
Do you know if he voted consistently for one party or the other?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He always voted, the union way. He was a Cooks Union local to San Francisco, so he always voted the union. So I know that he was a Democrat, right? He was always a lifelong Democrat,
Right.
and so when I see Section 241, conspiracy against rights, and I see that in the indictment, that's the thing that really, when people say this indictment goes to the fundamental core of democracy in America. It's not just that, peaceful transition of power and, how the votes are counted. It's just voting, period. Having your vote suddenly negated by a, a candidate who loses, but wants to think we all win and wants to go out there and negate the vote and subvert the will of the voter.
Well,
So
especially the mechanism that he attempted to use, the whole fake elector plot, right?
yeah,
That method is particularly noxious,
yeah, oh, yeah.
particularly offensive, and grossly anti-constitution, right? Grossly.
Grossly. Yeah. Well, I mean, he had to do it in a couple states. And fortunately, there were people who believed in the Constitution, both at the state level and among some among the voters, but some the fake, electors. But some were just thought, oh, well, we'll just be alternates if we're called. They didn't think, they didn't think that it was
Well,
this
yeah.
serious.
Okay. Well, if we want to, I know we try to stay away from calling people stupid, right? Just
Yeah.
because they do political things, but how could you not think that that was grossly illegal? That what you were doing grossly illegal, and then not even think about the morals and ethics from a constitutional point of view.
Yeah.
So it's just a willingness to do wrong
Mhm.
that's so obvious, right?
Yeah. I agree with you that people should be smarter, but I think,
Or less arrogant.
or let's say, well, I think what happens is it's your guy, right? And you're backing your guy. This goes back to the OJ thing. He's our guy,
Oh, gosh.
he's our guy, and he might be going down, but the alternative is worse. So he's our guy, and then there's the he's going to win and he's going to pardon us mentality, right? Which worked with some of Trump's early cronies, and it's now
Yeah,
his.
only about what, six of them, six or seven of them, and then there were a bunch of other people that were lined up, including some members of Congress.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, and then also there are people who worked for him who,
yeah.
they stayed loyal and they didn't get the gold dust. Well, which reminds me of the Mar-a-Lago case, where one of the issues involving co-defendant Walt Nauta. Now there's a second co-defendant, Carlos,
Oliveira. Yeah.
and they're all represented by Stanley Woodward, who is with the Trump PAC or is paid by the Trump PAC. And the question has come up. There's a conflict of interest between, uh, with
At least
Woodward.
between three and four.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if Woodward represented De Oliveira and also, um,
Now to
n-
and
well, if he
and then
represents all three of them,
yeah,
including number four, who isn't named but has been his name has been leaked as Yuscil Tavares.
yeah, Tavares.
So if you know if you're Walt Nauta and you know that your attorney represents all these other guys, do you feel like you don't have the best representation right now? Or are you feeling screwed yet?
Especially after Tavares was not named.
Yeah.
Okay, so if he's not named, then there's a possibility that he is a cooperating witness.
Right. And then when
Okay.
Walt Nauta's attorney, Woodward, has to cross examine number four, Tavares, but can't because he represents both. What's
Well,
what's
okay,
the
but he's part of a team,
right?
and so he could step aside. He could be sitting at the table,
Yeah.
right? He could be sitting at the table and have one of his team members do the examination, the cross.
Yeah. But should you feel good about your representation at that
You
point?
shouldn't. None of them should feel good about their representation because they're at risk that they're going to get. If Trump looks like he's going to get convicted of something, they're going to go right down with him.
Yeah.
So they should be thinking in those terms. Okay. The
Yeah.
problem is they can't afford lawyers.
Well, you
So,
got to be able to afford somebody. I
well,
mean,
you got a public defender.
well, that's better than
Nothing.
going
And
to
it's better
war
than a
with.
conflict of interest situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's better than going into war with an attorney who is really more for some other interest other than yours. I mean, what really brings this to the. I mean, this is specifically, well, now kind of in a kind of limbo because his attorney represents all these other guys who are co-defendants or potential co-defendants. But what made me think about it is the third indictment when you have mostly attorneys who
Yeah.
are unnamed co-conspirators, mostly attorneys, but they've all been named unofficially, like Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, and Sidney Powell. They're all big time, attorneys, or they can afford defense.
Yeah,
They,
and we were talking about the fake elector stupidity. I mean, when these guys are practiced attorneys, right? And
yeah.
Rudy Giuliani, one of the great heroes of 9/11, right? America's mayor and this legendary prosecutor, right? Federal prosecutor.
See, look,
And that guy does what he does, man.
this is the
And
thing
it's
about
just,
these legendary. I mean, you could be a smart constitutional lawyer like John Eastman, but when it's your guy, and he even said in the indictment, it says, well, he says it's probably not going to happen. But then he's got another one of his crony lawyers saying, yeah, let's try it. Um, we're talking about, I think, co-conspirator number three or four, no,
oh, God.
number 4 or 5. I mean, see, here's the thing: all those guys, they know that something's going to go wrong. They need their own attorney, and they're going to get their own attorney. Giuliani's got to have his own. He's not going to rely on a Trump attorney, is he?
Yeah, I don't think so.
He's not that. He's not that dumb.
I don't
So,
think so.
if you're Nauta in the Mar-a-Lago case, and you're saying, "Hey, these other guys have their own attorneys. Why don't I?" See, this is where I don't know. I said in an earlier column that what is it? Colonial mentality? Is it? Uh,
I think I think they don't really know the system very well, and I think they don't understand the level of risk that they're at. And what they see are a lot of people still very favorable towards Mr. Trump. So yeah, I think things are starting to clarify now.
so
Uh,
so well, the question that I've always raised is, well, now to flip, and I think he'd be stupid not to. But he may not have the kind of leverage now that he might have early on because
yeah,
the superseding indictment
right.
shows him as he changes travel plans. He meets with Carlos de Oliveira.
Yeah, it's
They
really
re-
detailed.
yeah,
So there's a whole lot of knowledge and a whole lot of action. It's not shallow anymore.
right. He seems deeper in it.
Yep.
He
Yep.
seems like he likes playing secret agent. He likes being, hey, the boss
Yeah,
likes me.
the level of consciousness and awareness of the probability of illegality,
Yeah,
just is was much stronger in the
and and
superseding
and
indictment.
and the only way that you can maybe justify it is to say, well, if Trump wins and that's his way out, he'll pardon me because I'm loyal and trust Trump. See,
Mhm.
that is like bonkers type of thinking because who will be the first to get thrown under the bus, right? Uh,
Yeah, well, if Trump wins, it's not looking real good right now.
yeah, I mean, but all right, maybe the Mar-a-Lago case goes after the third indictment, January 6th case. But after Trump is indicted there, it may be too late for Walt now to flip on the Mar-a-Lago case. I mean, he's
Yeah.
got to do it now. I mean,
Yeah.
what I'm
Well,
amazed by is why there isn't an Asian American Pacific Islander attorney pro bono who's willing to speak some sense into Walt Nauta to say, hey, look, do you want to go away for a long time, just like your boss? You don't have to go down with the ship, but no one has.
we don't know that. We don't know that no one's done it. It's just that it's not been reported on and it's not public.
All right, you're right. You're right.
And
Let's be
there are rules, and the lawyers who are representing him now could block them from
yeah.
making contact with him.
I mean,
So the way that it would have to be done is that a non lawyer, right, talks about somebody who's not a member of the bar talks about the problem in a
mm.
manner that gets clearly to Mr. Nauta and anybody else,
Oh,
right?
like
And
me.
Rivera and
Like
anybody
I'm a
else.
non-lawyer. I could talk about it. I could
That's
say,
right.
"Hey, Walt, look, why are you acting like a I think he's acting like a model minority. He's acting.
Okay.
I mean, he's quiet. You know what did it for me when I saw him hold the umbrella and hand it to Trump as Trump got out of the SUV at
Hmm.
the tarmac in um, in
Well,
Newark, I believe.
well, he sees some. He's a valet. I mean, right?
Yeah, that's his job,
So
right? He's
that's
got
what
to
you
be a good
do.
valet.
Yeah.
But that I think messes up his mind in terms of what his relationship, the power relationship he readily accepts. You know, you're a valet maybe for 8 hours or 10 hours, but for the rest of the time, you're a private citizen, Walt Nauta, and
Well, okay. If he decides that he's going to talk to a different lawyer,
mhm.
how long do you think with Trump before Trump fires him?
All right. Well, would you
Like,
rather?
yeah.
Well, if he fires him immediately, then he knows he made the right choice by going to a new lawyer.
He also knows he ain't got no money coming, man.
Well,
That's his that's his payroll right
that's
there.
why it's all got. Well, no, he's got his Navy salary, Navy pension.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's
Got his
true.
Navy pension, and he's probably like an ensign, so he's probably making 70, 60, 70, 80, whatever. He's probably making enough there,
Was he an
and
ensign or a CPO?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I forgot which one he is, but
but
anyway.
but he's right up there, steward, right? And
Yep,
then
yep.
and then when you talk about working for Trump, reportedly making 135,000 a year for Trump as his valet. I mean, he
That's a lot
doesn't
of
have
money,
the money, right?
yeah.
But he doesn't have a lot of money to hire the best legal uh, folks. But compare that to going to jail. Compare
Yeah.
that with having a bogus lawyer who's all Trump.
Well, once he makes the decision that he wants to hear from attorneys, I think somebody would step forward and do it pro bono. That would really be a big deal, man. Can you imagine the
Oh
press you
yeah,
get?
I
You know,
I think
until he screwed up. Look at the former attorney for what's her face.
yeah.
The porn star,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah. Stormy
Yeah, I
Daniels.
mean, he was big time until he screwed up. I mean, it went to his head, and he started making really grievous, egoistic errors. Right?
Well, he's in jail now, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
I
You
mean,
know,
he's
yeah,
yeah,
because he committed a felony, big time felony involving money.
yeah. So
And if there's anything that'll get you in jail and also get your license revoked, it is messing with money. Uh,
yeah. Well, I just think that a lot of people think that Walt Nauta is a bad guy, especially since the superseding indictment came out and shows how deeply involved he was.
hey,
And
man, he
when
was acting on the orders from his boss.
yeah,
So
and when you see that, maybe he loses some sympathy, but I see him as this is colonial mentality.
it's his gig. That's his boss. The guy's the president. Was the president of the United States. They've been together a while. Yeah.
I just know that he knows a lot of Washington insiders just from serving them cokes, right? And they say nice things about him. I'm surprised that no one has come forward to say, "Well, Nauta, we want to help you," because I think he's going to be one of the tragedies. I mean,
Yeah.
I could say this:
Yeah.
before Trump goes
I
down,
agree.
Walt Nauta goes down. Walt
I
Nauta
agree.
goes down if he doesn't do a thing, and he could do the Cassidy Hutchinson route, get a new lawyer. He can go the uh, employee number 4 route, the Tavares route, and cooperate. But he's got to do something to redeem himself. Otherwise, He's playing colonial mentality, you know, colonial mentality, model minority to the hilt. Hey, look, I'm just doing what my boss says. Here's the umbrella. I'm just keeping him dry. I'm
Yeah.
keeping Trump dry. Here's my umbrella. That saddened me. I saw
Well,
that.
what about just seeing himself as being
What do you mean?
a friend
Seeing,
to the president,
well, yeah, I I don't have any friends here in the Navy.
rather than colonial mentality, or it's a combination, right? There's
Yeah,
elements of colonial mentality, but there's also a commitment as a friend.
you're right. And that's what happens when you have that servant master mentality.
Yes,
At what point are you no longer a servant? At what point do you become family? At what point do you become more than the guy who fetches the cokes,
right.
which,
More
you know,
than just a
oh,
servant, merely a servant. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, this is a, and you know, as well as I, in the history of the Filipinos, a lot of Filipinos came over as servants, domestics. A lot of them are still domestics working in the Middle East. You get that mentality and you say, this is what I do. I'm here for you. I'm here to do anything you want. I went to a party that I felt I felt closer to the help because they were Filipinos and I did to the hosts and hostesses of the party. And
sure.
they just kept telling me, shh, go away, go away, go away. Because they didn't want me to blow their cover. Go away.
Yeah, I had kind of an opposite experience. One of my classmates at law school
Yeah,
was a descendant of a very famous family of lawyers and judges and all that,
yeah.
and he was actually called out by one of our law professors, Eldridge, Professor Eldridge, who wrote the other book on torts.
Uh,
Uh, said out loud in the classroom, right? Sanford Boone the third, and he goes, "Oh, Sanford Boone's your dad," and he put a check after his name, and the guy didn't get called on again for the rest of the year. But anyway, we struck up a friendship, a mild friendship, and he invited me to go walk with him up to the Olympic Club,
mhm.
and which is right there in the Tenderloin, right? And so we went up there, and he brought me in and said, "Yeah, we feel like a snack or a beer or something." And I said, "Sure." So walked in, and there's a lot of Filipinos working there, right?
Yeah,
And they were looking at me like, "Why are you
yeah,
being allowed in here?" It's like, what the hell? Why are you being allowed in here? And it was like, oh boy.
yeah,
And when I tell students that I ask them, okay, so there's these private men's clubs. When do you think women were allowed to join on their own? As independent members, and they said, oh, 70s. I said, nope. Later, and
They'll
they
be
said
like,
80s, really? And I said 1980 freaking eight, man.
oh, well, I
And it
mean,
was a lawsuit.
they ought to be glad it was that soon, right? I mean, it could have extended to the 90s or even 2000s,
Yeah,
right?
it was weird.
Look, this is true with all these clubs, and this is one of the things about the elite schools and how they prepare.
Oh, and we're gonna move right over, transition to legacies.
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I just think that we're gonna have to save talking about legacies.
I used to ask him, "Hey, dude, how do you feel? How do you feel about all that privilege?" And he goes, I used to kind of be embarrassed by it, but I can't go through life, feeling like that. So,
Yeah.
on the one hand, I don't like showing it off and flinging it around like some folks, but on the other hand, I can't be feeling guilty about it.
Yeah.
That I was born into
Well, do you still
that
talk? I mean,
legacy.
look, it's now about 30, 40 years later. You still talk to him?
No,
See? I mean,
no,
this is the thing. You know, all the people that I still talk to at my elite, you know, place of education, a handful, just a handful, and
right,
not very often. And nothing really too deep. I mean, like, you know, maybe I'd call him if I had a flat tire. Would I call him and say I need some help? No, I'd call AAA first.
Hmm.
But that's just the way it is. Um, anyway, look, I just I think we should wrap up. We'll talk about legacy and
Another time. Yeah, we're
another
good.
time. And but I think this whole thing with the indictment, when we talk about, did you know that this is the 58th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act or the Voting Rights Act? This is the 58th.
Wow.
Yeah,
58th.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is the
Well, yeah,
50.
65. Yeah.
Yeah, 58th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, and I just think that when you mentioned Section 241
Hmm.
in the indictment, that's the thing, right? That's the whole ball game. And as bad as, I mean, when you want to go to the heart of why this matters and why people of color, why all people need to pay attention, because you take away the right to vote, you take away the right of your vote to be cast and to be counted. You're taking away an important part of America. You're taking away the defining part of America.
Yep. Yep.
So
It's the essential element between the right to vote and the right to a fair trial. You've got a lot of the meaning of democracy, and as some people like to reference it, Madisonian democracy with checks and balances. Two of those elements are right there, and I just couldn't understand how people could see January 6th and the fake electors thing as being major crimes against Constitution. I just couldn't understand how you could be both, the combination of stupidity and arrogance, and that they believe in this fool. I mean, the guy exhibits no characteristics of honorable masculinity that I grew up around, and none of the characteristics of honesty, right, and
are you talking
dependability.
about, you talking about all the honest priests you grew up around?
More like all the honest old Filipinos that I grew up around,
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
honorable Filipino men that I grew up around.
yeah,
Veterans or not, they
yeah,
they had a profound sense of honor
yeah.
and dignity, right?
So yeah, that's the thing. It's almost like a cult-like hold, and a lot of it is, oh, we want to win, and a lot of it is, I mean, and Trump really he takes advantage of that. I'm persecuted, so that I can come after you, but I'll
That's
let
the
you
other
do
thing.
it to me.
That's the other thing that I think is comical is that, yeah, you're like me, I'm like you. Really?
Yeah,
How many of the people out there have committed the kind of crimes that this guy's? How many of them have been accused of rape
yeah,
and then stand, in a second defamatory case because they talked loud about a woman
yeah,
who said that she was raped. So how many of them, man? So I think these guys, they may not rape, and maybe they do,
yeah,
but they identify with a guy that attacks women in that fashion,
yeah.
that grabs them by the blank, right?
It's crazy. Well, all right. So one
What a
last
man.
one one
What a
last
man.
one last thing, and this is something I noticed. I've said it, you know, a while back, but when you want to talk about the continuing grip that Donald Trump has on Republicans, in particular white Republicans, it
Yep,
really has to do with this fear that America is changing,
that's right.
that the race demographics are changing, and we need to preserve whiteness. We need to preserve white supremacy. I mean, that really is at
Yeah,
the core also of the Trump cult and Trump's hold on the GOP, right? I mean, what do you
sure.
think about that?
In my class discussions beginning about 35 years ago, in my class discussions, I was looking at the demographics, the midterm census figures,
Hmm.
where they do projections based on the last census, and then they look at immigration, right, and birth rate.
Hmm.
And I said, well, people are starting to be concerned, and people in the Republican Party, I pointed it out, are concerned. And remember, Bush too was thinking, we gotta be a big tent party, and they tried to be friendly, and he spoke Spanish on occasion, right?
Right.
Because they were going to recruit people of color into the party. Um, and I thought at the time, I asked my students, "Well, do you think that that's a practical thing to do for the Republican Party? Because it's awfully white, right?" And they said, "Well, some of the brighter students said it's going to be people who identify with the money thing, with the business side of what the Republicans talk about." And I said, "Yeah, well, later in this semester, though, I'm going to show you statistics that show that businesses do better when the Democrats are in power. Not just when there's a Democratic president, but when there's at least one of the houses, right, is
Right.
held by a majority of Democrats." And I show them the stats. I show them the official budget office reductions and graphs and everything, right? And so it's kind of hard for them to argue that the Republicans who loudly say two things, right? We're for law and order, and we know how to do business. We know
Right.
how to make the economy work, and it's just
No,
not there.
it's we know how to do racism. That's what they know. That's what they know how to do.
Yeah, they don't. They didn't really brag about it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's basically why Trump has this hold. When people see the demographics
that it is. It
and
is.
and
And
and,
well,
and
they've
this
gotten to a point of desperation. They're really desperate.
well, and this is why you got to be hopeful that hey, Tim Scott, Ramaswamy, and you know Haley, Nikki Haley, they
Are
represent.
you familiar with the concept soft shoe?
Yeah, yeah. Look, I'm just saying
These
that,
guys are doing the dance, man.
but I just see that here's an idea. Trump gets out of this and he picks someone like Vivek Ramaswamy or Tim Scott as his number two, and that becomes a sop to the diverse folks, right? Because hey,
That could pull some. That you're right. That could pull a lot of votes.
I mean that, and then you already have the pro Trumpers, the 30-40% of the pro Trumpers who aren't turned off yet. I mean, there's a way out for Trump if he knows how to play his cards, and he's a survivor.
That's
Um,
that's the only thing he's good at. He's
yeah,
good at understanding what the lowest elements of the masses are, and
I,
he's
I,
good at playing them. Right.
I I hate the idea of a Donald Trump and Tim Scott or Donald Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy. Here I am, I'm Donald Trump, and here's my second, Vivek Ramaswamy. He's so much better, so much smarter than Walt Nauta. Walt Nauta is my valet, and Vivek Ramaswamy, he's a millionaire who licks my boots.
Right.
He's a billionaire bootlicker.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Anyway,
Yep.
so anyway, look, Dan, I appreciate you coming on talking about the indictments and talking about the news. I'm gonna take a hiatus until you know for the next week, but I'll replay this and be on the amok.com site. But thank you. We'll see what happens. There's August 28th. I guess we'll see if there's a trial date, and we'll see what conflicts. But I think if people shouldn't get fatigued now. It's just getting exciting.
Yeah, I'm hoping that more people pay attention rather than turn off. You
Yeah.
know, and so you're mentioning fatigue is an issue. It's real.
Well, it's summertime too. But I hope that maybe next time we talk, something different will happen with Well Nauta and maybe something positive. I mean, I'm rooting for him, and maybe it's because I see an AAPI guy, and I don't know why he's acting that way. But you raise an important point. Like at what point is he just
Well,
you
they actually feel loyalty, and loyalty could be a function of colonial mentality, just like you're saying. It's
know?
also a function of proximity and the possibility of friendship. That's the way a lot of people, particularly Filipinos and other Pacific Islanders. He's Guamanian, right? And
Yeah.
Guam is all full of Filipinos. So,
He's just being human,
yep.
right? I mean, look, uh, when I was in grad school, I had well, I mean, it's not totally synonymous, but I had a job working for a woman who, I walked her dogs.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't like a servant or anything, but walking dogs. But you do feel like at some point you're not just, you know, a worker.
That's like taking care of their kids. I mean,
Yeah,
that's more important. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, so you feel like you're part of the family, and at some point you are, but at some point they'll let you, and when you cross the line,
that's
they'll let
right.
you know you're not.
That's right.
And but maybe it's time for Walton Alta to say, "Hey, look, he's taking advantage of me, this guy Trump, and I got to
Yeah.
look out for me." So anyway, all right, Daniel
Take
Phil,
care, man.
take care. College of
Have a
Ethics.
good weekend. Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing your new version.
Oh yeah, yeah. Please, please. August 12th, 17th, and 19th. Dan's seen it different iterations. Thank you, Dan, for saying that, and I'll talk more about it on this tail end. But thanks, Dan. Have a nice weekend. Take care.
You
There he is, Daniel Phil Gonzalez, my friend, College of Ethics Studies, Asian American Studies, San Francisco State University, Professor Emeritus. We like to talk to him about stuff because he knows stuff. Dan knows stuff. He has an opinion. And he likes my show. He's seen a number of times. Hey, I'm doing the show. So we're going to go on hiatus starting. I'll just be playing replays. But check out Emil Amok, Lost NPR host, found in San Francisco. It's part of the San Francisco Fringe Festival, the 2023 Fringe Festival. It's at 277 Taylor Street in San Francisco. Saturday, August 12th, 7 p.m. Thursday, August 17th, 8:30 p.m. And Saturday, August 19th at 1 p.m. And you can get your tickets there, 277 Taylor Street, or get them, go to Eventbrite, EVENTBRITE, and say, hey, I want a ticket for Emil Amok, 2 words, Lost NPR host at the San Francisco Fringe, or go get the link. The link is right there on the screen if you see the screen, or on my website, amok.com. Check it out. San Diego story. I did the Amok monologues in San Diego a couple of years ago. And a reviewer said, excellent. Emil Guillermo knows how to tell a story. And that ability sets his Amok monologues above other solo shows. I mean, they're Amok monologues. And who are you, Emil? To tell us these things. Well, I lived the life. And I go through the process, the narrative of how I found myself at NPR, at Harvard, in San Francisco, Harvard Lampoon. So check it out. I mean, it's a fun show, and those 3 dates: August 12th, 17th, 19th. Get your tickets. The links at amok.com. All right. That's it. I'll put some stuff on my Twitter, at Emil Amok. Oh, it's now the X, I guess. They killed off the bird. You can also find mentions at amok.com, of course, and as well as a ticket link. See this replays of the shows on YouTube, youtube.com/at Emil Amok1, and on Facebook, the Emil Guillermo Facebook site, or emilguillermo.media. It's all there. Hey, that's it. Have yourselves a great, till next time, right? Meditate. It's helped me. A little loving kindness goes a long way. Offer it first to others, and hey, it comes back. It comes back to you. So, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time, mahal kita.